It's a great honour to be here. I'm delighted to be able to come and talk to you about some of the topics I'm going to cover today. I'm going to talk about three things. I'm going to start by talking about the latest discoveries in neuroscience, how your brain works, how children's brains work, and how we can use that knowledge to help them learn. Then I'm going to talk about research from the point of view of the teacher, how to recognize bad research, how to do good research. And then finally, I'm going to talk about games, playing games to learn and storytelling. Were we going to have Magda? We were going to have a little poll at the beginning. Yeah? We got time for that?
Yes.
I've got a question for you. Got a question for you. We got it? No? The question is, you got the question on your screen?
Yes.
Yeah, you have. Okay, the question should be, what percentage of the body's energy does the brain use? Is that right? That's the question? Yes, okay. So what percentage of breakfast is your brain using to power your thoughts? We see the results? Hey, there we go. 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, okay. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So most people think 40%. So you think you're using almost half of breakfast to power your brain. Okay. I'm not going to tell you the answer straight away. You'll find out in a short while. Okay, can we go back to the presentation? Perfect. Okay. In the last 30 years, we have learned more about how the brain works than in the previous 4,000 years of human history. And we have discovered some things that are very surprising, that are very strange, but will help us when we're teaching kids and also when we're introducing digital technology into the classroom. That's a brain cell. You have 86 billion brain cells inside your head. That is more than the number of stars in our galaxy. 86 billion neurons in the average adult head. Now, here you can see where brain cells connect. Those connections are called synapses. And you have 1,000 trillion synapses in your head. What happens when you think, an electrical signal goes down here to the end to a synapse. And a chemical called a neurotransmitter takes the message from one brain cell to the next. Now, if that only happens once, then that connection will disappear. But if it keeps happening, if that keeps happening time and time and time and time again, the connection gets faster until eventually it joins. It becomes a physical link. And that's when it becomes a permanent pathway. That's when something you have learned becomes a permanent part of your knowledge. The way to think of it, imagine a forest. If you walk through a forest for the first time, you leave a trail. But the forest grows back and the trail disappears. But if you keep walking the same path, day after day after day after day after day, it becomes a permanent pathway. Now, can you all ride a bicycle? You all learned how to ride a bicycle. How long did it take to learn to ride a bicycle when you were little? Do you remember? 1 week? 1 week? 2 weeks? That time, that 1 week or 2 weeks, was the time it was taking for those physical connections to happen inside your head. And once that happened, you will never, ever, ever, ever forget how to ride a bicycle. It's permanent. Now, the interesting thing, and this is very important if you're a teacher, if you're teaching and you see a child like this, looking out of the window, daydreaming, they're not being lazy, they're not being stupid, they're not paying, well, they are not paying attention, but that thinking, just thinking and daydreaming, makes the connection stronger, makes them stronger. Just thinking about things makes those connections stronger and stronger and stronger. That's really important. So, sorry, can we get rid of that black banner? The brain learns by linking, that's how we learn. We learn by making links. We also learn by making patterns. Now this is really important. The brain is the most powerful pattern recognition machine in the known universe. It is also the most powerful pattern making machine in the universe. We respond to patterns, and the most important pattern we respond to is the human face. But patterns, we create patterns inside our head, and everything we see and hear and taste and feel gets turned into a pattern inside our heads. Now, that's the answer to the question. The question was, what percentage of energy, body's energy, does your brain, superpowered brain? But normally it's 20%. And that's a lot. That is a lot of energy. So this is really important. The brain does a lot of things that we don't understand why it does it. It does strange things. It behaves in a strange way. And we think, why? Why am I thinking that? Why am I doing that? This is one of the reasons. The brain wants to save energy. The human brain wants to do as little work as possible. It wants to save energy. That's really important. Now, a good example is memory. Can anybody remember going and sitting on a beach when they were a little child and eating an ice cream? Remember that? Yeah? So maybe you were 6 years old and you went to a beach and you ate an ice cream, and that became a pattern inside your head. Then next year you were 7 years old and you went and sat on the beach and you had an ice cream. And what your brain did was your brain said, okay, I've already got a pattern for when I was 6, and this pattern is almost the same. So I'm just going to put them together and make them into one. And then next year, you go to the beach, you have an ice cream, and the brain goes, yeah, okay, I've already got a pattern of sitting on a beach eating an ice cream. I'm going to take this pattern and make it part of this one. So your memories, most of your memories, are not actual, true memories. They are combinations of things that happen to you, because the brain is trying to save space, it's trying to save energy. So your memories will combine into what we call meta-memories. That's really important when you're thinking about memory. Okay, the growing brain. Who's got kids? Who has children? Okay, do you remember little babies? Do you remember when you have a little baby and the baby is just a face? They look, you know E.T., do you know the film E.T.? Yeah, a baby looks like E.T. for the first 3 months. It's just a face. And then when they hit 3 months, suddenly they turn into a light bulb. Suddenly there's a massive increase in the size of the brain. That's because, whoops. Because at 3 months, there's a massive growth in the number of brain cells. A 3-month-old baby has 30% more brain cells than an adult. So babies suddenly like, you know, before 3 months they're like, and then suddenly they start taking interest in everything around them. That's because the brain has gone like that. But after that, what happens is what I call the brain gardener, because the brain is trying to be efficient all the time. So what will happen after 3 months is the brain will start to kill off, start to destroy most of those new cells as quickly as possible. And it's trying to turn it from this into this. So massive growth followed by rapid organization. And that's what kids, and then you have kids, they grow up, they grow up, they grow up, until guess what happens? Who's got teenagers? Who's got teenage kids? You can almost tell, when I say, who's got kids? They go, or when I say, who's got teenagers? Yeah, teenagers. Guess what happens to the teenage brain? Same thing again. Massive explosion in growth. Now, if you're teaching teenagers, you need to know this. Massive growth in a teenage brain, completely uncontrolled. The brain, parts of the brain that grow very rapidly are usually thinking about 1 or 2 things, usually one thing, and you can probably guess what that is. But other things happen also. Inside our head, we have a part of our brain that tells us what time it is. It links to roughly we can the day cycle, night and day. We understand night, we understand day. Teenagers, that part of the brain stops working. We don't know why, but teenagers lose the ability to understand when it's daytime and when it's nighttime. They get jet lag. Teenagers honestly have jet lag. That's why they cannot get up in the morning. Teenagers can't get up in the morning, not because they're lazy, it's because they're actually biologically suffering from what is very similar to jet lag. And that's why we have a mistake that everybody in the world does with the education system for teenagers. It starts it early in the morning. You're trying to teach teenagers who are half asleep because they can't help it at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. In Switzerland, it's 7 a.m. they start school. And the kids are like, because of this. If you want to teach teenagers and get them to understand things, you need to do it later in the day. Because their whole time do not understand the link between cause and effect, because that part of the brain is not yet physically developed. And it does not finish developing until you're 25. Is there anybody here who is 24 or younger? But I know you're all 24, I know. Yeah, but if you're younger than 25, the part of your brain that understands the relationship between do not give vitally important tasks with long-term consequences to people under the age of 25, because they do not have the biology to help them with it. Why does our brain do stupid things? You've got to understand the history of the brain. I need a volunteer. I need one volunteer with short nails that are not painted. You'll see why. Any volunteer? Hey, come on. Thank you very much. Thank you. I would like you to stand like that. Okay. This is the history of the world. So the world starts here 4.5 billion years ago. right? Lava, rain, bacteria, sorry. Bacteria, animals start here. Dinosaurs, when animals start, that's when your early brain starts to develop. Dinosaurs start here and die here. If you turn your hand like that, that little white bit at the end of the nail is the whole of human history. That's the whole, thank you very much. Thank you. That's all of human history in that little white bit at the end of your nail. But the human brain, the brain has been developing all the way here. So what the brain is designed to do is designed to cope with life here, not here, which is why it does strange things. It's designed, our human brain is designed to cope with an environment like this, not like this. And that's why a lot of the things it does don't seem to make sense to us. Basically, you are a human being riding a giant ape, riding a giant dinosaur. Most of your brain started here. And then you have a primate, and then you have a little human right at the top. So when you're trying to teach children, you're trying to talk to that little person at the top. But that little person at the top is trapped by all the things that are coming out of here. Oops, lost projector. There we are. There are three primary motivators. These are your most powerful motivators. Food, survival, sex, reproduction, sex and reproduction. Those are your most powerful motivators. These override everything. When you then get onto the ape brain, which is much newer, then these are your strongest motivators. It's strokes, physical strokes and hugs. Faces, friendly faces, positive words, social interaction, something we've missed over the last 2 years, social interaction. Status, whereabouts you are in the hierarchy in the group, and also what is my group and what is not my group. Those are your secondary most powerful motivators. Have you ever been to a party and somebody comes up to you and says, "Hello, John, I haven't seen you for years, how are you?" And you're thinking, "I can't remember your name. I have no idea who you are." And you go, "Hello, yes." Yeah, and you think, "Okay, well, I won't say anything, you know." And then your wife, my wife, comes up to me and says, "Hello, John, introduce me to your friend." And you go, "Oh, yeah," because you can't remember his name. That is because names are only important to the modern human brain. Your brain doesn't, the rest of your brain doesn't care. It's not important. The most powerful part of your brain is saying, is he going to feed me? Is he going to attack me? Am I going to make babies with him? Those are the most important questions. It doesn't care about the name. It doesn't care about the name. It's completely unimportant. Another example of how the evolution has affected how we think is how we understand numbers. How we understand numbers. Now, if you remember at the beginning, I said one of the most important things is the need to save energy. The brain wants to do as little work as it can to survive. So the brain cannot handle, it struggles with more than 3 things. 3 chairs, if I look at 3 chairs, it's very easy for my brain to automatically process what I'm seeing. If I step back and look at 4 chairs, what happens is the temperature starts to go up. It's working a little bit harder, and it doesn't like that. If it's 5 chairs, it's going, "Whoa, this is too hard. I'm working too hard." 3 things. And that is why it finds numbers difficult. Now here, you have 2 counting systems that developed at opposite ends of the world about the same time. At the top is the Roman counting system. At the bottom is the Japanese and Chinese counting system. Look, 1 is 1 thing. 2 things. 3 things. But when you get to 4, you don't see 4 sticks. Because the brain, if you've got 4 sticks, the brain is starting to work too hard. So you have a symbol instead. In the Roman numbers and the Chinese numbers. That's an example of how, when counting, the brain is trying to do as little work as possible. This is the Prima tribe from South America. Their mathematics is 1, 2, lots. That's all they have. That's their number system. So if you say to them, how many children have you got? Lots. It's like, no, really, how many children have you got? Lots. You know, can you count them? It's like, why do you want to count my children? The Munduruku, they've got a slightly bigger, their mathematics, they kind of feel the mathematics is bigger because they go to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, lots. So in actual fact, mathematics as we understand it is something that we don't automatically process. This is probably why people sometimes find mathematics challenging if it's taught in a certain way. What we do get is we get ratios. And this is important if you're teaching maths. We instinctively understand ratios. Now, they did an experiment in Africa, and they had a pride of lions, and then there was a bush, and then over here there was a water hole. And every morning the lions would get up, 1 or 2 or 3, and they would walk to the water to drink. The scientists put a speaker inside the bush. And when the lions went past, they would play the sound of other lions roaring. And they found something very interesting. If it was 1 lion and 1 roar, the lion would avoid the bush. If it was 2 lions and 1 roar, the lions would go to the bush to investigate. If it was 2 lions, 2 roars, they'd avoid it. If it was 3 to 2, they were like, maybe. They were calculating ratios in their heads for survival. And we do this automatically. And yet, when we're teaching children mathematics, we tend to think ratios are hard, so we'll do that later, and we'll start with the number line. But in fact, the number line is actually not automatic for us. The fact that mathematics started 2,500 years before the birth of Christ, but 0 was only invented around about 500 AD. It just shows you that, yes, we get ratios, this is harder. So we need to think about the mathematics curriculum, but perhaps reorganizing it. Okay, this is perhaps the most important part, which is about emotion and learning. And this is particularly important in the context of what has happened to us over the last 2 years or 3 years, where children and teachers have been under a lot of stress because of lockdown. You have a little part of your brain which sits about here called the amygdala. The amygdala. And the amygdala is designed to help you cope with stress. Now, when you are in a stressful situation like this, or any stressful situation, the amygdala does two things. The first thing it does is it sends a message to your heart, to get adrenaline going around your system so that you can run away very quickly. But at the same time, and this is more important, it sends a message up to the rest of your brain saying, stop thinking. Don't think. It actually deliberately makes you stupid. And the reason for this is because if this happens, and your brain goes, that's a tiger. Perhaps I should run away before it eats me. Too late, you're dead. That's why when you're in a stressful situation, a really stressful situation, you suddenly blank out, and when you start thinking again, you're 100 meters down the path, running away very quickly. It's a survival method. Now the problem is the amygdala does not understand modern life. So any type of stress, even low-level stress, day-to-day stress, at school, at home, will do the same thing. It will poke the amygdala, and it will mean that because you're stressed, you can't think as well. Oops. So if you're a child, and you see this, or you open a book of scary mathematics, and your heart goes, what the amygdala sees is this. That's why the absolute golden rule of education is unhappy kids cannot process information in their heads. It's like teenagers and jet lag. They simply cannot do it for biological reasons. But knowing this, once you understand this, once you develop emotional intelligence, once you understand why your brain does this, then it allows you to start to control it. The amygdala is also responsible for hate. When we hate different people, or we hate different groups, it's the amygdala, again, that's doing this. And it comes from, it's a survival method, again, from when we were apes, and we were, remember when I said secondary motivators? Us and them, my group, the others. If we are competing for resources, like food, for example, then what will happen is the amygdala will poke us, it will make us aggressive, it will make us angry, it will make us begin to hate them. And unfortunately, if you've got certain people encouraging that, then you get the growth of intolerance and you get the growth of hate. You can solve that by getting as many people into the us group as you can. So the amygdala is saying, right, there's us and them. But if you make everybody part of us, the amygdala has nowhere to go. So the way that you counter this effect of hatred is by getting children to mingle with and make friends with as many different groups, as many different cultures, as many different types of people as possible, so that everybody becomes us. So, for this first part, we learn by making patterns. The human brain learns by making patterns. Our memories, most of our memories are not true memories. They are synthesized memories, made up of lots of different memories. Our brain tries to save energy. So when the brain is doing strange things, it's because it's trying to save energy. It's trying to use as little energy as possible. Stress Negative stress stops us thinking. Like I said, unhappy kids do not learn. But emotional intelligence will help us control that. And then finally, the more familiar we become with other groups, with other people, then the less tendency we have to fall into intolerance. So that's a kind of summary of some of the latest discoveries on how. I hope it's maybe given you some ideas to think about. Any questions? I need to get my headset. Thank you. Anybody got any questions? Oh, everybody wants to go get a coffee. Any questions? Yeah.
Was it in English or in Romanian?
If you can say in English.
In English, that's great, but I think she will need the microphone for the translators.
Atunci în română ca să traducă la toată.
Yeah.
Întrebarea mea este dacă există diferențe între modul în care funcționează creierul femeii și creierul bărbatului.
That is a very, very good question. And funnily enough, in my next presentation, I'm actually going to talk about that. So if you can wait a little bit, a few minutes longer, then yes, I'll talk about this idea that men's brains and women's brains are different.